myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. It feels alright.
Good morning. Welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Thursday, bright and early. Joining me, Gibbo and Supermac. How are you, lads?
All right,
I'm
thanks,
good.
Steve.
Good to see you. Malcolm's having a few tech issues, so we've told him just to leave it as it is because his voice is perfect. At least we can hear him. That's great.
The invisible man.
I know you'd rather just look at me and shut me up.
Fantastic, as always, an hour to talk about Newcastle United and, of course, England. A little break in the World Cup now as we get ready for the quarterfinals. And John, the Senegal game, which we all felt could have been a potential banana skin, I think was anything but. And with the exception of that opening half hour, England dominated and played some great football and deserved their place in the quarterfinals.
There's no question. I mean, they proved in that match that was a step up from Iran and from Wales. But they proved in that match two things that have been happening. A, they can score goals because they got three. And B, they kept the third successive clean sheet. So you really can't ask for a lot more than that. And against a very athletic side. It was a good performance. It was convincing. Now, if Senegal was a step up from Iran and Wales, then obviously France is going to be a very big step up from Senegal. And that's going to be interesting because there's a lot of people that, apart from the perennial side everybody thinks is always going to win the World Cup, Brazil, apart from them, probably France is, as the holders, the side left in the competition. So it's probably the biggest test we can get. And it's going to be interesting and it's going to be fascinating how we handle Mbappe, because for me, he is the greatest player in the world now. He is taken over from Ronaldo, who's well past his sell-by date, and even from Messi already. I think he's the number one. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I think we ought to think back to when Newcastle played Manchester City at St James Park, because St Maximin absolutely murdered, pulverized, and frightened Kyle Walker to death, and that having. And it was such a blatant worry for Kyle Walker, the way that St Maximin was just running at him, and Mbappe is just going to do the same if Kyle Walker plays, and I'm just absolutely horrified that he will be in the side. It seems to me. Go on, John. Sorry.
Yeah, I think more than just being the side, Malcolm, he's one of the pet favourites of Southgate, and Southgate thinks he's got the ideal man because of his pace to look after Mbappe. That's his thinking, and I think.
Right. Well, if Kyle Walker isn't fitter, stronger than his opposing number, then he hasn't got a plan B in his game at all.
I mean, Martin Keown, who's watched him very closely, I think in training as well as in the matches, is suggesting that after his groin surgery, Walker isn't quite up to the pace he was up to, at his very best, that he's lost perhaps half a yard. And that would be very dangerous against Mbappe, because we've got to remember that if Maxi took him to the cleaners, Maxi can't get in there. He hasn't got a single cap yet, whereas Mbappe, who plays in the same left-hand role, is arguably the world's best player at the moment. Yeah. So it is going to be difficult, although, we can't get too obsessed about one player, because you leave the door open and Griezmann or Giroud or somebody comes in and nails you because you're that obsessed with the guy playing outside left.
And I don't think England are going to fall into that kind of pitfall. I really don't. I think listening to Kyle Walker yesterday, he won't either. He had to answer the same question more or less 4 times from English and French journalists, and he said, "This is England versus France. This isn't Kyle Walker versus Mbappe." And ultimately, Mbappe had paid him the biggest compliment in an interview last year. Last week or the week before, where he said that Kyle Walker was the biggest test that he'd ever had. Now that could be a little bit of gamemanship. It could be a little bit of, a little bit of psychological stuff going on there with Mbappe and Walker. But as you say, I think the biggest threat for England is Giroud. I mean, the guy's goal scoring record for France is superb, and we need to keep an eye on him. But we're familiar with him. The back four will be familiar with him. They've played against him many times in the Premier League. But I genuinely think that this isn't all about Mbappe. No doubt the kid's good, but let's focus on the positives for England, John. England have got some great players as well, and the likes of the likes of Phil Foden, Jude Bellingham, Jack Grealish in an England shirt seems to do better than he does at club level at this moment in time because he's surrounded by star players at Man City, I guess. But there's been some great performances, and Declan Rice does the dirty work. I thought he had his best game against Senegal. I thought he was really good. So, me personally, I'm confident. I think we'll go into this game, but this is the biggest game not only of these players' career, but this is the biggest game of Gareth Southgate's international career because he's got to beat France. If he beats France, gives himself half a chance, John.
Yeah, there's absolutely no question about that. The great thing with England, is the strength and depth. What he's got on the bench to change the game later on is fascinating. You've mentioned all the players so far. I mean, when you think players of the ability of Foden is not automatic, a lot of people are saying he should be, but he's not an automatic starter, which is incredible. Neither is Sterling when he's available. We know his situation at the moment, but when he's available. Grealish isn't an automatic starter. We've never even mentioned Maddison, who's only got 1 cap, who would get in most international sides, but with England, they're standing in a queue. There is great strength and depth, and Bellingham is going to be just different class. I mean,
it's really 19. Outstanding, isn't he?
Oh, 19, Malcolm. I mean, and play with such maturity at that age, and it's fabulous. I think this is the huge test for Gareth. Because Gareth is in a situation, he's a bit like Marmite. Fans either love him or hate him. And he's at the situation where he can absolutely nail his reputation for all time if England won the World Cup or got to the final or whatever. Or you'll get some people wanting him out if they fail against France. And this is the biggest challenge he'll probably face, this French side. And he's got it early on. There's been a lot of upsets in the World Cup so far. In fact, almost every other game's an upset. And in a way, to the neutral, if England beat France, it's a bit of an upset. This is about the only match in the World Cup where I think we will be second in the betting in a 2-horse race. Most people would fancy France here, but everywhere else England play, they would be batting on England as favourites. So it is a great opportunity to get in amongst them, shake them up, and get the result that we need. A fascinating match. And there's so many matchups all over the park. It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. But certainly we're in with a real chance. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and if England should get through against France, I think that they would have the easier semi-final draw because it would be the Portugal that they would be taking on, more than likely.
Portugal or Morocco?
Yeah, I would imagine Portugal will win.
Yeah.
But I don't find Portugal absolutely convincing, not by any stretch.
No, definitely not. Okay, well, we'll wait and see how that all pans out. Raheem Sterling has returned now to the England squad as well after that horrendous situation that his family went through a few days ago. But plenty of options for Gareth Southgate and a few more days to get it right. Great to see Newcastle United, John, out in Saudi. A lot warmer than it is on Tyneside. That is for certain. It's cold, says Les and Alan. It's very cold in Newcastle in the northeast. Yeah, you are right. But yeah, Newcastle are in Saudi, and a fans meeting yesterday went down very, very well, and we'll be showing you a few photographs on the Friday night show tomorrow. The Amigos were in the mix of it. Steve Hasty, Neil Mitchell, Stu Penman from this channel, and our own Liam Kennedy out there as well. So great to see so many of the lads meeting up with Amanda, Mirdad, Darren Eales, Shola Ramiobi out there, Eddie Howe, Jacob Murphy, Jamal Lascelles, all taking part yesterday in a wonderful fans initiative. And those are Newcastle fans who made the journey out there. A couple of my mates out there as well, Darren Curry, Adam Pearson is across there. Great to see them interacting with the supporters. And, you know, one would imagine that that's gone down so well, it might be an idea to do, something like that across here at some point.
Yes, I think that is the obvious step, that, the hands across the bridge over here exactly as over there. I don't think is there anyone in Newcastle? Everyone, as far as I can see, is out there, including all the staff of Newcastle United that have got out there on a sort of PR exercise.
100 admin staff.
Yes, I mean, I don't think there's anybody left here apart from Santa Claus and Rudolph. I think everybody else is out in the Middle East. But it's a good thing. And there's a match today, which means little apart from getting, physically fit and ready for the resumption. Now we've lost, was it Kieran Clark that liked to duff up a couple of people out there on the last trip?
Allegedly.
On the football field.
On the football pitch, yeah.
On the football pitch out there. Remember, he got sent off.
Yeah, he got sent off.
Mm-hmm.
Aye. So, I mean, that was a good PR exercise. So, but outside of that happening today, the main thing is to get some sort of mileage into the bodies of some players that stop playing. I think it's a bit early for Isaac. I don't think he's going to be risked out there. Because they want him to be 110%, if that's ever possible. I often smile when somebody says, "Oh, I'm 110%. I didn't know that was possible." But anyway, we need him up and running because he will add greatly to what we've got to come. Because we will be fighting on three fronts. We're going to be fighting on the League Cup front, the Premier League front, and the FA Cup front. And on the three, we are quite capable of getting success in all three. We're quite capable with good draws of winning one of the domestic cups, and anything that brings Europe in the league is a success this season after being second bottom for so long last season. So yeah, there's plenty to be optimistic about, and with both England and with Newcastle United right now.
Malcolm, it's good, isn't it? It's a good exercise. You've spoken about how they're embracing the, the former players and legends such as yourself up with the club, and good to see them, reaching out to the supporters, especially those who've made that long trip to Saudi.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And being on a trip like that, there isn't a daily grind going on, and so people. They have that time to forge companionships with supporters, and I always think that it's really good for a club. When I was managing Fulham, we used to do it all of the time, and then tried it at Huddersfield, and it was very difficult. It was really difficult that I didn't feel that the people within the football club wanted it to happen, and yet supporters, I think they absolutely love to be involved in some small way, and it does absolutely great for a football club, and Newcastle, that as big as the club is, as huge as the support is, there's always been a closeness, I think, always. When you think of all the talkings that go on, with ex-players, there's always such a real warmth in it all, and it's good when the current players can feel that warmth.
Yeah, of course it is. Well, here's a little snapshot of yesterday. The Three Amigos has got a new presenter. That's great, isn't it? Amanda Staveley, right in the middle of the day. As somebody described on Twitter, a rose between two thorns.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. A tall rose by the look of it, or are they short thorns?
Fantastic. Great stuff. And she was very, very friendly, as you would imagine. Had a great chat with Steve and Mitch. We'll find out more about what they exchanged words on tomorrow. Look forward to that. Great to see as well, John, young players being taken out on this. Now, we knew this would happen. The Chronicles covered it, of course. The players who've gone out there, the likes of Dylan Stevenson were on the plane, and that kind of experience must be fantastic, John, for the youngsters.
Oh, I mean, you can't buy that. And what it does, it cements. For the rest of their career, they will remember whatever height they reach at Newcastle or with other clubs or whatever height they reach, they'll remember the first trip abroad to Saudi with all the top players at Newcastle. Yes, there's 5 of them at the World Cup, but there's plenty of the superstars out there, and they will remember that for all time, and being able to mix with them, have breakfast together, and senior players like Lascelles and Maxi will make them feel very, very warm and very, very welcome, and go out their way to make them feel inclusive. And certainly Eddie Howe will do that. There's no question about that. That's what he is very, very good at. And it is important, because these are the stars of tomorrow. These are the people that can save you millions of pounds in the transfer market by coming through. And it's no good leaving them to one side on the back burner till they're ready and then popping them in. It's making them feel part of the family right from day one. And this is the excellent way of doing it, and an ideal opportunity. Bring in the bright young kids and make them feel part of a family, because the whole thing that the new owners have tried to do is return Newcastle United to what it used to be, which is one big family. And from that, I'm including the managerial side, the playing side, and the fan side. The idea that this is one big family and we'll go forward together is the essence of what produces success, and will produce success for Newcastle. And that's what we've, for a long time, what we haven't felt part of a family at all. We've felt that we are on the outside looking in at people that ought to be our family, but we're being kept separate from them. Not like that anymore.
Yeah, it's good to see the youngsters getting involved, Malcolm. I mean, you were a young player, and going through that kind of initiation into the first team, if you like, must be quite daunting. But to be able to go to Saudi and be part of something rather special is it's got to give a big boost. And those kids, I guess, will come back and relay the tales of the travel and the trip to the other youngsters, and really give them an initiative to push on and try and be in the next trip away.
Absolutely. There is nothing like a trip abroad to broaden one's mind. And that needs to happen with youngsters, and they need to experience all of that. As John was talking, I just reflected back to when I was a young player. I had just joined Fulham, and it was my first reserve game, and we stopped at a hotel 3 hours before the game was due to kick off, and lunch was all pre-ordered, and everybody had a fillet steak. I'd never had one before, and I always remember that particular lunch. And it stays with me, and the camaraderie on the bus and what have you. And then, of course, you go through all the team stuff in preparation for the game itself. And the whole thing was absolutely fascinating. So different to how it was when I was playing in the Southern League. You know, there were some players who would make their own way to the ground and what have you. Yes, it's great experience for those youngsters, and just being able to sit on a coach, on a plane, in a hotel, wherever, and talk to experienced pros and be able to just ask them the questions that you want answering. And then you start to build experience within you, and knowledge is it's such an important thing, because you're learning what to expect.
And of course, there's been a feeling, hasn't there, in the recent past, that this sort of academy has been divorced from the first team training, that the academy didn't matter. We've let it run down facility-wise. We've let it run down in terms of
we haven't. Mike Ashley did.
Yeah. We as Newcastle United have not shown any sort of
it was unforgivable what he did to the football club, and it's going to take a long time to recover from it.
Yes, and a lot of attention has now been given to the academy in terms of recruiting young players to be part of the academy setup and grow within the club and get into first team. We're not just signing top players in the transfer window like Botman and Bruno and Pope and Byrne, etc., but we're also signing kids going into the academy. We're taking kids away with us now. There's a feeling that we want to make certain that the academy is part of our family and is not detached from the first team, that there's the first team and another, that it's all part of one family, and that is very necessary. Any successful football club has a good academy and pays attention to its academy, and we are starting to do that. It's been a heck of a catch-up for the club, because in 12 months there's been so much work to be done, and it's quite staggering that we've managed to do so much in that time, but it will take time.
Yes, and it's at every level.
Absolutely.
There's been a huge leap with the first team, for heaven's sake. Look at they're in third place in the table right now instead of battling relegation. But at the same time, it's happening for 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds, all behind the scenes, and it's so. Oh, it's so refreshing to see the actual scope of the work that Newcastle United do. When it used to be that you had a junior coach who would look after the under 16s, 15s, and 14s. Now it starts at 8, and there are a whole host of youngsters to each year, under 8s, under 9s, under 10s, under 11s, and what have you. So it's actually quite a huge pyramid that a football club is these days to how it used to be, where it was juniors, reserves, and first team. It's now very, very different, and it takes a lot of people. Steve Harper has got numerous coaches. There's a coach for every single level, and it was great watching them all work, I have to say. And the conditions that they've got, the training ground is absolutely fabulous. But there's a new one on its way, and it's going to be, I think, an absolute state of the art. Training.
I think there's still an awful lot of work to be done, but we're on the right path. And the link between the seniors in the academy, age group wise, and that huge step into the first team squad, it's that link which has been strengthened on the trip to Saudi, because it's the age group, if you like, the under 21s onwards, downwards. We're getting the link to the first team now.
Sure.
With what's happening,
and it's great to see to see Sean Longstaff in the side, and that's got to be the focus for all those youngsters. I can do what Sean Longstaff is experiencing now. I can get there.
Elliot Anderson's another example to them.
Yes, of course.
If kids that have come through from, and there was Dummett before that, but there's been far too few in the past. There's been a trickle. We've got to open the door that much more.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's exciting to think that we are now starting to really do it properly, whereas it had gone into decay for 15 years under Ashley. He just didn't give a damn at all about the state of the training ground and the people who use the facility.
A couple of questions coming in. We'll get to them after this ad break. A big thanks to all our sponsors. First off, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. And thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces. They are handmade in Cumbria, and you can find more information out on their website, mrvickies.co.uk. And if you want to order any, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to Blowhole Brewery, a new beer made on Tyneside. The cans are all designed in the colours of Newcastle United's strips from days gone by. Black and white there, the purple and blue, and the good old-fashioned blue from the Entertainers' days. But get more information on the Blowhole Brewery range, such as Geordie Juice, from blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things and video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who do our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the show, then all you need to do is click the subscribe button below. You can also hit the thumb up, which does us a favor by liking the video, and click share to your social media, such as Twitter and Facebook. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify and the rest. And if you want to contribute to the show, use the QR code. It takes you straight to the membership pack and you can join the channel. What do you get for your membership pack? You get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. You can also make a donation by hitting the $ in the chat tonight. We also give you something for free if you subscribe to the show. To get your car sticker, email john@nufcmatters.com and he will post you one out. We also support the food bank on this show. And if you want to make a virtual donation to the food bank, then go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. On our website, we've got lots of t-shirts, cups, pens, you name it, memorabilia, if you want to buy it and support the show. For Christmas, we have the Bruno Christmas jumper, which is selling rather well. And we'll have the bobble hats, Play Like Almiron, Bruno's Magic, and Bruno's 39 and Joe Linton's J7. Get yourself to nufcmatters.com to buy them today. If you want to buy people a ticket for one of our events next year, we've got an evening with Steve Howie, which is Friday the 24th of February at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £50 from nufcmatters.com or newcastlelegends.com. And you can also buy them on voucher before Christmas. Get somebody a bargain and a nice Christmas present. Peter Beardsley is on the 10th of February at St. Dom's Catholic Club in Newcastle. Tickets available direct from the venue. And for this one, Friday the 2nd of June next year at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth, 6:30 start. An evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford. To book tickets, contact Natalie at healandtour.org.uk or visit their website, healandtour.org.uk/events. If you're looking for a Christmas present and people like a book, then get yourself NME from the Bender Squad to the Gremlins, or the last remaining copies of Black or White, No Grey Areas, Lee Clark's autobiography, and you can get them from www.badboysbooks.net. Malcolm is struggling with these devices again, so we'll let him crack on. He's obviously pressed a button that he shouldn't have pressed, and He's disappeared into the ethos of. Oh, here he is. He's back. There we
He's
go.
back, the invisible man. There he is.
He is. Okay, I did say we had some questions. Malcolm, this one from Mr. Anderson said, is there anyone from your day, Malcolm, that you would put up against Mbappe? Any defenders?
Yes. Frank Clark. He was, for me, just about the best actual defender in the game. And he was very quick, and so he would keep up with Mbappe pace wise, and the fans were desperate for him to slide tackle. They loved slide tackling, seeing players down on their backside. And Frank, he would just stay on his feet, stay goal side, not let the opposing forward get beyond him at all. And he was brilliant at doing it. And for me, when people say who was the best defender you ever played with, and I say Frank Clark, he was limited just to that. And it would be a very interesting tussle between he and Mbappe. He's a bit old for it now, though.
I was going to say, I think Mbappe might just have the edge on Saturday night against Frank.
So, yeah.
Frank's in his 70s now.
Yeah.
And we do have a little bonus coming up, of course, over Christmas. Those of you who were at the Surf Cafe will have been delighted to have been there for an evening with Frank Clark, which went down very, very well at the Tyne Surf Cafe. He was in good form, Gibbo.
He was indeed. He thoroughly enjoyed it. It was terrific. He was buzzing about it afterwards, and so were the audience. It's a lovely, intimate place. You've worked at Steve and Malcolm. Mm-hmm. It's a smashing place to have a sort of a close tete-a-tete with fans. It was terrific. Absolutely terrific.
Well, the good news is over Christmas, because John from QTech was down there on recording duties. So for us, it was great. Over Christmas, Gibbo and Frank Clark will be playing it on this channel over Christmas. Gives us a little bit of time off, so that'll be fantastic. You'll be able to get a glimpse into some great stories from Frank. He doesn't do many of these, so big thanks to John for going down and taking part, and thanks for John Gibson for doing it, and the Surf Cafe for entertaining us again. Fantastic venue. Tom says, Malcolm and John, how many players do you think Newcastle will sign in January? Basically, I think possibly 3 players in and try and get a few out the exit door. This has been a story circulating this week, John, about potentially getting rid of players. And Chris Wood, Jacob Murphy, ASM, 3 names mentioned just off the top of my head, probably 1 or 2 others as well. What you call Matt Ritchie is another one. People talking about him potentially leaving. Ryan Fraser. Eddie Howe's been quick to dismiss the Chris Wood story, ASM as well. I don't think we would see a move for him until perhaps the summer, unless he can get himself back into the team firing on all cylinders. But what's your thoughts on ins and outs, John? It's a bit early, but the transfer window will be here before we know it.
Well, I mean, they were quite obviously, they've been working on it for an awful long time. I think it'll more or less become an in and out situation. However many go out, that number will come in. I don't think we'll get the January that we had last January, because then I had to save the club from going into championship, which it did spectacularly. It's difficult to get a lot of people you want in the January window, and I think they'll be cautious because, of course, also the fair play comes into situation. If they do their brains in January, then they can't do it so much come the summer. And they're also working desperately hard behind the scenes on sponsorship and raising the amount of money that comes into the club, which of course raises the ceiling for how much you can spend. So that is as important. It's a lot more dull to fans because you just want to see people come in, but they've got to increase the money coming into the club to be allowed to go and spend. It's not just all about taking out your own back pocket. I think people like Ryan Fraser will be allowed to go because he wants to go. He feels he's not getting enough of the game and enough game time, and at this stage of his career, that's what he wants. Fair dues. He will be allowed to go because he wants to go. Matt Ritchie would be allowed to go. I don't think there's any chance of some maximum going in a January window whatsoever. None whatsoever. And yes, I've heard exactly the same, that they're wanting to keep Wood at this stage of proceedings in a belt and braces situation, having been caught out with the Isaac injury and thinking Wood can get injured. Callum Wilson can get injured at any time. He's missed a couple of days training just this week with England, hasn't he, with a muscle strain. So there's a feeling we don't want to get caught in the Isaac Callum Wilson situation, so we'll keep Wood around. I think that can change in the summer when you've got a longer run at the transfer window than 1 month, and I think that'll change then. But they won't get rid of Wilson in this window because he is also very willing to stay and play backup, as indeed is Jamal Lascelles. There's been a lot of talk we can cash in there, and everything can change. If some club comes along and offers a right few quid for Lascelles and he suddenly thinks that's a decent club, it could all change. But he is wanting to stay and fight on. Wood is prepared to do the same. They could stay. Fraser doesn't want to do it that way. He wants to go out and get first team football. He'll be allowed to go. But I think it'll sort of be 2 in, 2 out, 3 in, 3 out. It will be like that, as opposed to just signing half a dozen and not being able to get rid of anyone.
Malcolm, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, there's no use buying for the sake of buying. You know, we know that there's money in the bank, but Newcastle have, and I think that they will be patient so that they get the absolute right players in for exactly where they need in the side. And so I never think that the January window is really a good time to buy. You do much better business in the summer, and so yeah, if there is the availability of the right players that Eddie Howe wants, then yeah, do the business. But if Newcastle were to go through January doing no business at all, I wouldn't worry about it in the slightest, and I would be quite happy to wait until the summer. And do remember that what we have within the club right now has got the club into 3rd place.
What we've also got to remember, guys, that I think it's a completely corny phrase, but in this case, it's justified. Isaac is like a £60 million signing. He's only played 3 games for us, and he's going to become available. Now that is like a new striker, isn't it? We haven't had him. We've had a little cameo, which we've got quite excited about when we think of him against Liverpool, etc., etc. He becomes available in January for every game. Now that's a new £60 million signing in January straight away, really, isn't it?
And they're treating him with kid gloves as well. I mean, he's they're not rushing him back. I mean, you know, people expecting him because he was on the flight. He was going to play tonight. Then he's going to play on the 17th. Clearly taking the time, may not feature until the Leicester game. But yeah, they're being very protective of him, and that's also great to see. Which comes to Shez's point, with our thin squad depth versus the top 4 playing Champions League games, how much of a difference will that make with our chances of remaining in the top 4? Given our less demanding game schedule. And 9 out of the next 10 games, John, on TV. Newcastle are certainly creating the new entertainers. Everybody wants to watch them. So, yeah, the fact that the other teams have got Europe, I think you've pointed this out on a couple of occasions on the show, it's going to play a big part in where Newcastle can finish. As long as they can keep the same run of form going, and have a little bit of luck with injuries and suspensions, Newcastle, are looking fairly good.
I am a great believer that this is a season where they can make an impact because they're playing less games. Next season, you enter Europe into the situation, whether it's the Europa League, whether it's the Champions League, whatever it is, and it's a whole new workload. It really is a whole new workload, and it's every week is sort of weekend, midweek, weekend, midweek, weekend. It's not like that at the moment. So we have, and even the two domestic cups are virtually staggered, aren't they? The first half of the season is the League Cup, and the second half of the season is the FA Cup. Yes, they overlap, but only a tiny bit. So this is the time when we can make an impact. There's no question that we are slightly short on numbers and experience in those numbers at the moment, but you've got to think the second half of the season, you've got Isak coming. Elliot Anderson will get stronger and stronger and press that much more for a case. People like Saint-Maximin and Shelby, who have been out of the starting picture for ages. Shelby since the beginning of the season, Saint-Maximin for an awful long time, getting on as sub but not starting, should come January be available for starting lineups, which strengthens the depth of the squad even further. So if we can avoid injuries, and I'm not going to harp on about the obvious one, but Callum Wilson is the obvious one, injury to him. If we can avoid injuries, our squad, as Malcolm said, with the addition of a fit Maxi, a fit Shelby, a fit Isak, Elliot Anderson pushing, is good enough to achieve something positive this season, be it a domestic cup or qualifying for Europe. And I think the fact that we haven't got those extra games that every other top club has got in Europe is to our advantage this particular season.
Yeah, it certainly is, John.
Yeah, but you agree as well. I mean, it's a good opportunity, Malcolm, isn't it, for for us really to cement our place in that top four.
Yes, and then the hard work starts in the summer, in staying there.
Yeah, that's the big problem. It sets a benchmark, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And of course, if Newcastle do stay in the top four come the end of the season, then the workload for next season almost doubles. And so then there's got to be all sorts of business done to strengthen in all areas. But let's leave that until the summer, when that's the best time to do business in football.
I mean, you were right what you said, Steve. It's very interesting that television has suddenly discovered us as being a very good natural watch for the rest of the country, and all of a sudden we can't get off being on television live at games, because all of a sudden we are the entertainers to a certain extent again. I'm not trying to yet put us in the class of the other boys, but we do play in an entertaining way. People are excited to see us. People are curious to see how it's developing, how Eddie Howe's developing, how the Saudis are handling things. And therefore, we are a first match to think, let us see Newcastle. So we are booked up to be live on telly game after game after game after game. 12 months ago, they didn't want to know us unless we were playing one of the top teams, and they thought we could lose by 4 or 5. So watch Newcastle against Man City to watch the goals rain in. It's a different ball game now, isn't it?
Completely different ball game. GM, thanks for this message. He says, my eldest has started rattling goals in at his under 19s, thanks to Malcolm's advice to not be afraid to miss. Thanks, Mal, from Lennon.
Yeah, that's lovely to hear. That's lovely.
It is lovely. Yeah, well done, lad. And keep rattling them in.
Les says ASM has done an interview talking positively about the club and the region, essentially saying he feels he's home and never wants to leave. So, I mean, look, it's always an interesting position, isn't it? This ASM thing, John. What's he got to do? What's he got to do to cement his place at the club and to stop, to stop that potential move away?
Well, he's got to find consistency for a start. I know that's a very easy word, but it is the fact of life. Because with a lot of players that are so-called flair players, it's a matter of how consistent are you. Do you do it regularly? Hatton Ben Arthur did it, but not regularly. But when he did it, by Jove, it was glorious. Sir Maximum does it, but not regularly. But when he does it, it's glorious. Malcolm mentioned earlier in this program about his performance against Manchester City and Kyle Walker. He can be sensational. What he's got to be, though, is consistent. And I think the two things I want to see out of Maxi, and I mean, there's genuine hope there. He can play. There's nobody's ever questioned that. But we need him to be consistent, and we need his attitude to be spot on. We need him, in other words, to be in the mood regularly, to go out there determined to stamp his authority on the game, his superiority on the game, not to go out there as if this particular week he's not fancying it too much, or the wind's blowing in the wrong direction, or whatever. The consistency is needed. And the lovely thing is that from his point of view, taking Newcastle out the equation, from his point of view, he is at the stage of life where it's make or break. He's either going to become an established quality player, everything he wants to be, and be a top player at a top club, and this is a top club and heading that way, by the way, or he's going to be the man that produces a wonderful performance every 5 games and plays for a mid-table club and does that every now and again. I mean, I'm hoping, and it sounds like the penny's dropping with Maxi, because he's talking now about, everything positive and wanting to stay at the club and all that. He can see, where is Maxi going to get a better club than where he is? We are going in one direction, which is upwards. He's already on board. All he's got to do is stay on board and make certain he stays on board, and he's going to the heights. Now, what better club than us are going to buy Maxi? Are Manchester City going to buy Maxi? Are Arsenal going to buy Maxi? Or Liverpool, who are currently below us, but are they going to, or Spurs? He is at the best club for him, and he doesn't need a transfer to a big club. He's at one, which is going up. So he's just got to stay on board the bus and make certain he's not turfed off the bus. And the way to do that is produce consistency.
Yeah,
Malcolm?
I John, but it's the consistency for what? And I think that if what Eddie Howe should do, and I think this would be really effective with St. Maximin, is get him to understand what is most essential from a player like him in the position that he plays. And I would, if I were Eddie Howe, I would give him 2 targets. I would say, okay, we've got a season ahead of us. This is come the summer. We've got a season ahead of us. In that season, I want you to score 10 goals and I want you to make 25 goals. And just focus him to, as he nears the end of his magic runs with the ball, he either shoots or he crosses, one or the other. There are too many times where he's gone on mazy runs and he's finished up at the corner flag and not really accomplishing very much indeed. When you get into those danger areas, you either shoot or you cross, one or the other, and do it each time that you get to those positions. And I think that in focusing him to do what is absolutely important, I think that would go a long way to improving him as a player. get it right in his mind, absolutely buried in such a way that that he never forgets it. You either shoot or you cross.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I look at and saying, let us not yet give up on Maxi, is that I look at the unbelievable blossoming we've seen with Almiron, with Joe Linton, with Shaw, with countless number of Newcastle players, and say, if that improvement can suddenly, after 3.5 years, Almiron can suddenly look a different player to what he was. Joe Linton can switch position and suddenly look at Colossus. If that can happen, there's stuff to work on with Saint-Maximin that can make it happen to him if it can happen to Almiron and Joe Linton. The one thing that would stop it with Maxi is if in his head he's not prepared to accept the advice, the change in attitude, etc., which Almiron and Joe Linton have definitely accepted. He's got to have an open mind to be willing to accept what he's told, to knuckle down and do it. If he does that, he's got enough inside him for things to be pulled out. I never thought I would see as big a change in Almiron as I have, or as big a change in Joe Linton as I have. So that gives you hope that you can see a change in Saint-Maximin. And I think it's as much in his mind, in between his ears, as it is in his ability.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a great problem to have, though. Somebody like that struggling to get in the team, who, let's face it, was our star player before this takeover. Somebody who we couldn't have done without. So it's weird how the whole thing changes. Alan says before he got injured, I thought ASM had altered his playing, as in not trying to beat everybody. He said he had been talking with Trippier, and it was noticeable, Alan. You have to agree. Les says, agree, Alan. He was looking up, sliding passes in, and even tried to track back, something which really should just be part of your game. Paul Hurd says Maxi definitely has it, and I'm glad to see he doesn't go to ground so easily now. He needs Eddie in his ear and a little time, I think. Yeah. And David John Cook says, when Maxi performs, he occupies 2 or 3 defenders, opening things up for others. But at times, he loses the ball too easily. And Ches says, I'll never give up on Maxi. He's already shown improvement before his injury. My only concern is that he won't press as well, which is the biggest reason for the team's success. Some great points coming in there, John, from the viewers.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, we are very much a pressing team, and when somebody is not a presser, it stands out, and it only works when you're a high pressing team if everybody presses together. If one doesn't, it won't work. And you get that situation. Can Maxi press as much? Is it natural from? Is it for different reasons with Chris Wood? Can't cover ground quickly enough. Can he press as much? Can John Joe press as much? We need pressing players. It comes natural and easy to someone like Almiron, who, because that's he's quick and he's a natural Duracell bunny. But we've got, and also with ball players, I've found throughout the years, talking about the little one about Maxi losing the ball players often do that. Chris Waddle's one of the greatest ball players we've ever seen, but he will lose the ball because ball players on occasions do lose the ball.
Yeah.
Going back to Bobby Mitchell will lose the ball. Coming back to ball players can do that. And sometimes you've got to live with that because nobody's perfect. Outside of Pele, nobody has been perfect. Well, they have actually, but not too many of them. And everybody's got to carry some little minus somewhere along the road. But let's hope. We've seen a lot of miracles at St. James's Park in the last 12 months. It wouldn't take too much of a miracle for it to work with Saint-Maximin, but I don't think it is down to Eddie or down to the coaches. I think it's down to Maxi to want to listen and to take it in and to say to himself, I'm a top player. I am, without question, got the ability to be a top player, but I've got to listen and learn other parts to make certain I am what I can be. Because there's a big gap between what you can be in what you are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is one thing that I would add to that, and that is that he started to drop off a lot now and look to defend, but he's one of the worst defenders I've ever seen in my life. And I really think if he drops off too far when Newcastle are defending, he becomes a bit of a liability. So I'd rather see him do it further up the pitch than rather than dropping off into the last third.
Okay, England play France this weekend in the quarterfinals of the World Cup. As always, we're looking for a prediction from our two guys here. So, John, England versus France. What are we going to get from you?
This is the hardest game it is possible to have. I think it is as hard as Brazil, to be truthful, because Brazil always give you a chance, while they can murder you, they give you a chance. I think this is the hardest opposition possible, but you've got to go with your heart when you're at the World Cup. It's no good going with your head. You've got to go with your heart as an outsider looking in. And I'm looking for us to squeeze it in the tightest way possible. It may take extra time. It may even take penalties. But how about we're winning on penalties for a change? Wouldn't that be wonderful? But I'm taking us to get through by the narrowest of margins that are possible.
Okay. And Malcolm?
Yes, I think it's going to be a fascinating game, a truly fascinating game. And I think both sides will score. But I can see, as long as they're able to keep Mbappe to a degree outside of the penalty area, and so I think England, if they can do that, then they can squeeze through. But I think there are going to be goals in the game. So, and England they're scoring at will. There's such a variety. They're scoring from all over, from all positions. So I'm going to take England to beat France 3-2.
3-2. You heard it here first. Great stuff as always, John and Supermac. Thanks for coming on early. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. Take care. Have a good weekend.
And you, Steve. Cheers,
Bye,
John.
bye. Take care, guys.